This is Laura Ollinger from the Positively Healthy Mom, and welcome to the Spanglish World and her networks on Zingo channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app on your iOS or Android device. And remember that when you download, you can leave a comment. The app is free, and Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, and Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and moving forward. So welcome Aaron, not Aaron, that's my boyfriend, Eric. Eric Stenlake is in the house today. So welcome, Eric. Eric is a friend and colleague of mine. And so Eric, say hello to the Positively Healthy Moms.
Awesome. Good morning. Hi there, everybody. Great to have you guys with us on the show today. This is fabulous for you guys tuning in from around the world. You guys are a fabulous group, and it's an honor for me to be here. Thanks, Laura, so much for asking me to be here on the show.
Awesome. So, Eric, you are not a mom. And so you're going to have to earn your street cred here with the moms.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right. But I brought Eric in today because he is an expert in teenagers, parents, and family relationships. So I've got to comment that. So he could try.
Yes. The mother of all mothers right here, people. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah. Okay. You be you. You stay a dad, but you are certainly an expert in the family and teenager and parent relationship. So you'll have lots of expertise to bring to us today. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I thought we would kind of get into is, teenage stress and teenage emotions, because that tends to be one of the biggest sources of conflict within the relationship. Mm-hmm. And so what would be your first thought about talking about that topic?
Wow. Teenage emotions. I mean, really, teenagers are emotional. Teenagers got things happening, the blow-ups, the outbursts, if you will, the emotional triggers, things that are happening. Listen, if there's one thing that I've learned and my wife over the years is not to take things personally. Because when teenagers are having these meltdowns or emotional outbursts, even younger children, it tends to come from a different area. And what we've learned with our kids, our three kids, is to give them that safe place of which they can unload on us. Mm-hmm. And so they have that permission with us to go ahead and do that in a safe and constructive way.
Right.
And I think we've really learned how to navigate that when this emotion is coming out and things are happening, we don't take it personally. Because when we do, that's when we begin to have that tension, because now there's pushback on whatever this emotion is. Instead of coming to the place of a curious understanding mm-hmm. of what is happening, why that emotion is showing up and showing out in that instance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like a lot of parents struggle with knowing how to give that space or provide the space. And realize that it is not a direct or personal attack. Even if it sounds like an attack, they might be saying like, you're terrible, blah, 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 all those things. Even those words are not meant to be personal. That is a reflection of what's going on inside the teenager's inner world and the need for independence. And so I saw this cool thing on Instagram this morning that was from Dr. Lisa D'Amour. She's an awesome teenage psychologist. And she talked about the analogy of teenagers being in a swimming pool, and they're swimming around with their friends. They're having fun. They're having a good old time. But every once in a while, the play gets too rough. They start, swallowing water or getting under. And what they need to do is go to the side of the pool and grab on. And that's the analogy of the parents. Yeah. They need to catch their breath, slow down. And then as soon as they start to feel safe and comfortable again, they're ready to go back and go with their friends. Yeah. And so it can be almost like hurtful because the parent suddenly feels, oh, they're close to me. They want to talk to me. They want to be with me. But then the second they start to feel better, all of a sudden they're gone again. And so that also, that kind of, I don't think abandonment is the proper term, but just like kind of used and abused. Like they're in and they're out. Like, well, hey, what happened? I
Yeah.
thought we were just having a great, moment here. And then all of a sudden, next minute you're gone. And so that
Yeah.
can be another part of it. But I thought it would be fun today to do a conversation of just the very basics of, one of your specialties is thoughts, feelings, emotions, behaviors, results. So why don't you walk us through? I mean, it's not your thing, but it's a thing, and that's something that you specialize in, kind of explaining and teaching.
Sure.
So can you give us your lesson on that today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, this is going to come back to that immediate awareness. And this is something that I have built up over time, right?
Mhm.
Because I could tell you, I wasn't always in this space of understanding of why and where these emotions are coming from. And so I would push back because, listen, I'm the parent. You can't talk to me this way. You can't do this way. You can't say this. You can't do this. And I've learned over the years, right, to really pull apart that emotional tension and
Mhm.
focus in this middle area. That is the critical area. That is the pause.
Mhm.
And when I've learned to pause myself and now come into this situation and say, okay, what's going on? It's not about me. That emotional overload is not about me. It's about them and their day. So let me give you an example. When the kids are at school all day, they are giving, 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 giving emotionally, which is really, really tough sometimes because kids at school, they're so worried and so concerned about how they look, how they dress, what they say, who they're hanging out with, and God forbid they do one little thing that's going to get posted on social media or
Mhm.
going to have them get made fun of. And so they're walking on eggshells and they don't have a chance to relax,
Right.
right? And so then they come home and, hey, how was your day? Right? The first thing that typically comes out of parents' mouth,
Yeah.
right? And then boom, here comes this verbal explosion.
Mhm.
Or they walk in the house and there was a time where we should say, okay, here's some chores to do this afternoon. Chores? Oh, are you kidding me? Boom, and then an explosion there. So
Mhm.
what I've learned over the years, and parents, I'm going to really encourage you guys to do this is when your kids come back into the home or into the car or they're leaving, allow them that space to just kind of decompress for a while,
Totally.
right?
Really.
It's typically that we say, how was your day? How was your classes? How was the teachers? How are your grades? And we start pumping them through all the questions of which they don't want to answer at this given point in time,
Mhm.
right? And I know I made that mistake going online. Oh my gosh, what do all these zeros mean? Well, it just means the teacher hasn't inputted the grades yet.
Mhm.
So the assignments are done; they're just not inputted yet.
Mhm.
And so when you start going into those questions, they will take it as an attack on their character. Excuse me, an attack on their character rather than me coming from that place of support.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so in that questioning, maybe you could come up with something like, "Gosh, today's a beautiful day. Wasn't it a beautiful day today? Gosh, the sun feels so good. Were you able to enjoy the sun at all today and be outside? Did you eat lunch outside? And, oh my gosh, what an amazing day. Oh, I had this great thing that happened to me today. What great thing happened to you today? You
I like
know, and change that focus of questioning
Mhm.
to not be in the generalization of really looking at the normal questions that we ask as parents, but really just exploring a different space of curiosity.
Right. And there's just so many other ways they could take that as well. It's kind of annoying, right, to get asked the same questions every day.
Every day.
Right? It's like if you were, and I know from my own experience, every day I'm stressful, I'm running around, blah,
Yep,
blah, blah, I'm doing
yep,
a million things. And if somebody starts like at the end of the day when I'm tired and I'm worn out and I just want to recharge or relax, I don't want to be asked all those questions. So to just have some sensitivity about like what they've experienced for their day.
yeah,
And then B, the other opportunity is parents get frustrated when they do get the short answers, like fine,
Mhm.
good,
Yeah.
blah, 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 right? And so then that
Yeah.
creates more tension because then the parent is digging more, 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 and it just becomes harassing and annoying. And then they go to their room and they slam the door, and then the
Yeah.
parent's like, "What happened? What did I do?" It's like maybe they just need a break. They just need a chill
Absolutely.
time, right? But I love the way you phrase your questions because they sound so much less like an interrogation
Mhm.
also,
Mhm.
because they just kind of shift the mood, right? And then it leaves the teenager free to answer however they want. You say it's a beautiful day. How was your day? Or did you agree? Do you think it was a beautiful day? They can say, yeah, nope. They can disagree with you. They can say, no, it was cloudy. But just let them say whatever they want to say,
Yep.
right? And,
Yep.
and just kind of give them that freedom and space, and then don't take whatever that response is. You just don't take it personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now let's go into part B on that, if you will, or part two, because there's purpose and intent behind the questions
Mhm.
that I ask, because then the context clues are going to flow. If I'm asking those questions that are going to get the Neanderthal responses, yeah, sure, okay, from the kids, right? The one word or one letter responses, I ask those questions purposefully to keep them open ended for a response.
Right.
And in that response, then, if I say it was a beautiful day today, and they come back and go, no, it was cloudy, it was a horrible day, it was a gosh, it sounds like you're really, gosh, it sounds like you had a tough day, or wow, it sounds like you weren't able to enjoy the sun so much. Is everything okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then being able to really ask those questions in a way that keep the door of communication open, as opposed to just slamming it, have a door slammer, if you will, of, well, that's just you just need to change your attitude. You just need to think positively, okay,
Yeah.
sweetie, just think positively and the whole world will be great.
We
No,
don't
it doesn't work like that.
moms don't talk like that.
That
Terrible
is the
impersonation. Come on, get it right. Get it right.
Honestly, that is the most frustrating thing that I've learned over the years to say to my kids. Oh, well, if you just think positively, everything's going to be fine.
Right.
No, it's not. It's not in that world,
Yeah.
with teens and tweens and teens, if you will. So getting them to really open up about that, and then asking some leading questions, some curious questions. Well,
Mhm.
if they're saying, well, it was a horrible day, well, how does that make you feel? Well, I don't like having horrible, no kidding,
Mhm.
that really is tough when you've had a hard day.
Mhm.
Is there anything maybe you want to share about that? No. Okay, cool. Hey, no
Mhm.
problem. But just know that if there is, you're welcome. I'd love to sit down and chat with you on that. So
Mhm.
again, still keeping that door of communication open, but
Mhm.
giving them that space to shift,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
then I will always intentionally go back maybe later that day and just say, "Hey, is there anything you wanted to talk about from before? Because it sounded like maybe you were upset coming out of school today, or is everything cool?" Nah, everything's cool. I talked to my friend, worked it out. So now that tells me what? They had something happen at school today of which they worked out, and they didn't need me for that. And
Mhm.
that's fine. That's fabulous,
Mhm.
because they're gaining that independence, they're gaining those social skills, they're gaining the ability to work through those situations, and knowing that they have somebody there for support sometimes is all they need.
Mhm.
And
Totally.
so learning those valuable life skills on how to navigate through that really is beautiful.
Right. Yeah. And we have that impulse as parents to fix things. So,
Yep.
that's why we want to dig and say, what's going on? What happened? Da, da, da. What are you going to do about it? Right. It's like, you give them that space and then allow them to resolve it on their own. But I wanted to add a little bit more kind of depth to that part about really listening and validating, which is,
Mhm.
you said, I had a rough day. And then, you say, how do you feel about that? And a lot of times teenagers can't name the emotion.
Yep.
So they might say, well, it sucked. And it's like, that's not really truly a feeling word. It's a
True.
it's a descriptive word of how they're feeling. And so
Yep.
what would be helpful for the parent is to then to give them that language and to validate that feeling. And so you might say, wow, you must have had a really stressful or frustrating day, whatever it is that you're sensing, or you must
Mhm.
have felt really aggravated by that teacher, or you must have felt really annoyed by your friends who were doing that, right? And give them those feeling words, because then they can, they say you have to feel it to heal it, or you
Yeah.
have to name it to tame it.
Mhm.
um,
Mhm. Yeah.
and so in order to then name that emotion or help them, and because then if you're wrong, they can say, no, I wasn't frustrated.
Exactly.
I was angry, right? Like then
Mhm.
they can correct you, but kind of like give a little, rough draft on what you think it is. And then that's validating to them. And then chances are you're probably right. You hit the nail right on the head. And that immediately just like calms that feeling, right? It's
Mhm.
just like, yes, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing more frustrating in this world when then you're trying to explain something to somebody and they just don't get it. They don't
Right.
understand. And you're like, oh my gosh. And so that's why, that parent team relationship also has conflict, right? Because
Yeah.
the parents don't get it.
Yeah.
So to kind of help them with that, use those validating words, use the feeling words, and just to really empathize. And the thing is, you don't even have to agree, right? Like maybe you have great respect for their English teacher, but they think their English teacher sucks. So
Mhm.
you say, I can understand how you would feel frustrated with your English teacher
Yeah.
because they changed the due date of your assignment. I can understand
Mhm.
that, right? Instead of saying, well,
Mhm.
your teacher is right about that, like don't take the teacher's side. Take the kid's side. Take the kid's side, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the kids are great. They'll tell you if you're on the right track or not, and they have no problem telling you that,
Mhm.
which actually is a good thing, right? So moms, if you have your children that are frustrated and they're like, no, mom, oh my gosh, right? Because I don't know if you have teenagers that sound like that, because I sure do. And so now they're feeling that frustration, and I know I'm not on the right track. So that is a message that I receive that
Mhm.
I take as, oh, thank God. Now I know a direction to go from
Mhm.
that, rather than like, don't use that tone with me. Remember that emotional part of that. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about them,
Mhm.
and allowing them that space and place of safety to really begin expressing that. and
Mhm.
and I, and I love that we went into that, the part about, well, is it like this or more like this, giving them that options to decide. Is it because there was something with your teachers, or was it something with some kids at school?
Mhm.
That school is tough at this age. I don't know how you're even able to do it. Like, this is, oh my gosh, fifth
Mhm.
grade is, wow, that's tough. I First of all, congratulations on making it through another day, because that could be really tough sometimes at school,
Mhm.
right? So just having those honest, open conversations, whether they continue or whether your kid puts it on hold for a while, don't take offense to either way of that. Um, I think the biggest shift that I made as a parent was moving out of that role of being that parent, if you will, in what the norm of the parenting is, and more into that, coach, if you will, or support structure, or support person. And I know that sounds weird. Like, yeah, I'm still going to be the parent, absolutely, but it's more of getting them to make those decisions and supporting them in that, and
Mhm.
giving ideas and giving suggestions along the way, and asking for permission to give that. Well, so okay, so this has happened with your teacher. Is this something that's happened before? Is this something new? Is this something that they typically you'll see in the classroom?
Mhm.
Would you like some suggestions on how to, some things that maybe you could say or do in that situation, or do you feel like you got it handled?
Mhm. Mhm. And
Well, I guess, yeah, okay.
and that was actually where I was going to head with this conversation. Is the coach approach to parenting.
Yeah.
So I do
Mhm.
want to get into that, but before we do that, there was one other thing that, as you were talking, I always can use my own kids as an example, like you do as well. And
Sure.
having all these conversations with the kids, it's funny because it depends on the kid's personality. And
Mhm.
what I
Mhm.
found is they all have their own, ways, times of day that they are ready to open up. So, for example, my oldest daughter, the second she gets in the car, she's right, she's ready to spill it. She just like all out. She's just like verbal vomit of every part of her day. So she's
Yeah.
an easy one because I always know exactly what's happening. Or even she'll text me from school and say, "Oh my gosh, this happened or this happened." Right? I am very up to date on her. My second child, who's my oldest boy, he's the more closed off one. He's a little bit more difficult to reach. And so I find I have to work a little bit harder to like get the information or to figure out how I can support him. And then my next one is another boy. Here's what I found. It's when I'm doing the dishes in the evening, he suddenly just decides he's ready, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like after dinner and I was cleaning up and he'll just stay at the table and he'll just start talking. It could be about sports, it could be about school, it could be about his friends. And I'm like, I kind of love this. So I just pretend like I'm not, of course, really excited that I'm like, oh, yeah, he's doing it. But I don't make it a big deal. I'm like, oh, yeah, buddy,
Yeah.
I totally get it, that blah, blah. And then my youngest, we have this kind of tradition where we go for walks. And
Mhm.
lately,
Mhm.
December. So we walk at night and we get to see all the Christmas lights in the neighborhood. But
Aw.
that's her time. And she always says, "Oh, I feel so much better."
Yeah.
And I love that because she kind of just like unloads on me, but she'll only really do it during that time. It's harder to get her to open up at other times of the day, but that's her time. So it's
Mhm.
funny how
Mhm.
every kid has their own way of doing it. So what's been your experience as far as your kids or just other people's kids with that?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. There's some of my kids, will just open up, and then the other one is, yeah, forget about it. You're lucky if you get a, response with the letter K, that things are alright.
Mhm,
Um, and the time of day matters, situations matter. Where are they coming from? Are they coming from school? Are they coming from a job, a part-time
mhm,
job? Are they coming from hanging out with their friends? Um as depending upon where your kids' ages are, even the younger ones, if there's a group of kids that go hang out, there's so many dynamics that happen within that group of the kids hanging out at somebody's house, or they go to the mall, or whatever the case might be.
mhm,
That when they come back, how have they acted or reacted in those situations to again, in those social settings? It's so much pressure on
mhm,
kids these days in the social settings. And you're looking at the time of day. I say all three of my kids are the same way. Some
mhm,
of them are completely non-functioning in the morning,
mhm,
and some of them are the night owls.
mhm.
And uh and and they'll even say to me, "Dad, when you going to bed? Because we're just waking we're just waking up into life. Dad, you go to bed, so we watch a movie, are you doing this?" you know
Vampires.
so- yeah, yeah. And it's like, no, go do you, boo. Go, have your time, do whatever you need to do, right? This is your life. You manage yourself within the constructs of time in that 24-hour period,
Mhm.
taking care of what you need to.
Yeah.
And what can I do to support them in their different times of when they're wanting to communicate, when they're not wanting to communicate?
Mhm,
I know some of them come in from work and they don't want to say a word.
mhm,
They need that decompressed time. They need that time just to unwind for a little while. And I'll
mhm,
tell you what, moms, you guys know this too, right? Those of you that are working or volunteering or you're out and about, you come back to the home. There is that time of which you need your decompressed time,
yes.
right? And so, part of what I do in my role is I go into schools all over the United States, and I deliver professional development trainings for teachers in school, and leadership and culture development within the school, within the classroom, the learning groups and things of that nature. And this is the topic that comes up quite often, of which we talk about that decompressed time. And I'm going to encourage you moms to find those times of which you need to step back and remove yourself from the family and have that alone time just for a little bit to decompress for yourselves.
Totally.
I've had some things over there. I know we're moving off of the kid thing, but this is really important for you moms, is to have that time. I've worked with teachers of which they say, I'm going to come in the door, I'm going to say hi to everybody, and we have set the intention in the family that when mom comes in, nobody messes with mom for half an hour. Not, I need this, I need this, I'm starving, I need this, because you walk in the door and the first thing they say is what? What's for dinner?
Dinner.
Right? Absolutely. I'm gonna give you what's for dinner. I got something right here, a knuckle sandwich. You want that? And having that time just to say, listen, I'm gonna go into my room, I'm gonna shut the door, and I'm just gonna have some alone time to
Yeah.
decompress.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm going to change. Maybe I'm going to refresh a little bit. And then when I come out, I'm going to be ready to then engage in with the family and do it. So as it's important for the kids, so it's important for you too, moms,
Mhm.
is to have that time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's later at night. And you're like, listen, this is my read time.
Yeah.
And so my kids are seeing me reading. They're not going to come up and ask me, all these questions because they see me, stimulating my brain, and I'm reading something that is good. And so anyway, I wanted to throw that in there because it's kind of a lead from when the kids need to have that decompressed time, so we as the adults do.
I think that is such a great point, and I'm so glad you brought that up. And so, how would you present that to your family in a manner that they would respect your wishes on that?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things I wanna point out here is in that alone time, we want to respect the spaces of all the kids, all the members of the family. Everybody will come to that place of which they want that and need that alone time. And so for us in our house, it's very easy. We've gotten to that place where I need a few minutes. And
Mhm.
everybody's like, cool. It's a no big deal now because
Mhm.
we've practiced that. It's become a habit in our house,
Mhm.
right? If the kids come in from school and they've had that frustrating day, and my son says, I need a few minutes, Dad. Hey, Dad. Hey, cool. No worries. What are you gonna do? You're gonna play some video games. You're gonna take a nap. What are you gonna do?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
then and we're keeping that conversation going, and it's curious. I'm gonna get online for a little bit. Okay, no problem. Do you want me to come connect with you in 30, 45 minutes. So because that could easily turn into 3 hours or 4 hours of video game playing, right? Yeah. Set me a timer, for 45 minutes. Cool, no problem.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now it's the place where they set their own timer, and I love that because they're in tune with that.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
Um, I also like the idea of, so my kids, of course, they ask that, what's for, dinner? I love that. It felt like a game show when you asked that question.
Right.
I found lately, it's kind of fun to tell them in the morning when they're going to school. I don't know why. It's just because I like them to know what the day is going to be like. And so
Hmm.
I'll say, okay, guys, this is what's on the schedule for today. I have this client at this time. You have basketball at this time. And for dinner, we're having blank, right? So that way they kind of know what the day is. And so when
Yeah.
they come home, somehow it's just like they already know, they know what's expected. And it's funny because you know how, our kids who are, little itty bitties, toddlers, they thrive on that routine and that predictability. I found
Sure.
that teenagers are very mumuch the same. They kind of do
Hmm.
well when they know what to expect, and it kind of just makes their day easier. I mean, I know I would kind of want to know too, right?
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so let's switch topics to, and by the way, sorry, this little kitty of mine, this is
Oh
Lucy.
no.
Yeah, Lucy is just really wanting to be on the show today. So
I love it.
if y'all hear meowing, I apologize. She just is really wanting to be close today.
Oh, it's great. I love it.
Okay, so I have for a long time really loved to talk about the coach approach to parenting. And
Mhm,
so
mhm.
that's using coaching methods. And so how can we together, because you and I trained in in the same coaching school and the Neuro Encoding Institute. And so What would be your take on, methods or tools, techniques that we can teach the parents of how they could coach their kids?
Oh my gosh, that is such a loaded question. Because you and I know
Mhm,
we have a gazillion things that we can use. I'm just going to go into my family and for me personally,
mhm,
if that's okay.
mhm,
Um, I use the stop technique is
mhm,
one of the things that I use, of which as emotions are coming forth, I want to be able to be in control rather than the emotion be in control. And I think this is where kids lose that ability because they don't know how to manage that
mhm,
emotion when it surfaces. And there's not a level of understanding at some points of which they're not realizing why and where that's coming from.
mhm,
And so we've worked through this as a family, and I've worked through this in my own growth and development as a parent and a coach. So
mhm,
as that emotion rises, I start looking at it and go, okay, um, this emotion is coming up, and so now I'm gonna try to name it if I can. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling scared. So the stop, the S is I'm going to say what that emotion is for me. And so then I identify it. Then I start, okay, well, where is that coming from? Is it
mhm,
a past experience that was negative? Is it something else? Where is that coming from? So I begin to have that level of understanding. These are great conversations that we've had with our kids over the years, by the way,
mhm,
because now they understand when those emotions arise. They can name it, you know. The T of the stop for me is to take a deep breath. Right, breathe in. I'll take that breath in for a good 4 to 6 count. Hold it for a 4 to 6 count, and out for a 4 to 6 count.
mhm,
Right, and I'll do that. I'll do that deep breathing for 3, 4, 5 times, maybe. Right, because what's happening there is getting the blood to get back into the prefrontal cortex, where that's where that thinking and reasoning, executive functions going on, and pulling that blood out of the basal ganglia, which is the emotional center of the brain.
mhm,
When I get really worried, stressed, fear, doubt, all those things, I lose that ability because the blood leaves the prefrontal cortex of the brain, right?
mhm,
So now I've taken that deep breath, and now I begin to look at what the outcomes are. What are the outcomes? What are the opportunities? So STO, what are the outcomes or opportunities? Well, if I'm stressed, nervous, worry, fear, doubt, all of these thieves that are coming in, overwhelmed, the thieves of the dream that are showing up. Now I'm looking at that and going, okay, what do I want here? Well, I need to. I want to get this task done, but right now I'm so stressed out about it. I don't know if I can do it. And thinking about your kids, whether they're 3, 5, 9, 15, or older, same thing applies. A 3-year old's not going to be able to verbalize what they want and thinking about, well, I want to do this. So now I'm going to help and lead and guide them with those questioning. What do you want there? Would you like to do this or would you like to do this? Getting them in the habit of making executive functioning decisions is absolute gold
mhm,
because they're going to learn how to do that at an early age. And then sooner than later, they're not going to need you, which is fabulous. And let me explain why. They're taking on that role and responsibility of leadership of self,
mhm,
not being in a stage or place of dependency on you as a parent to make all the decisions for them. And that is a beautiful place. Now, once you get to that place of that understanding of what the opportunity is there, now we just simply get to the P, which is the praise. And so I teach my kids, pat yourself on the back, right? Whether you do it physically, I want them to do that, but they're like, "You're so dumb, Dad. You're so dumb. You don't have to reach around and pat yourself in the back," right? I don't know if your kids are going to say the same thing. Right? But they're like, "Dad, I'm not going to do that," right? That's okay. Do it visually in your head. Visualize yourself patting yourself on the back because that's that praise.
mhm,
Or maybe it's a praise phrase that they're going to say. Like
Mm,
I can still hear my grandfather in my head saying, "Great job, way to go, champ," because he used to call me champ, and so I'll say that in my head, "Way to go, champ," and
mm,
that's my pat on the back.
mhm,
Another thing is as those emotions come up, and I'm going to name it. Then another thing I do with that is I ask myself, is it true?
right.
And so that is a beautiful thing to do. And so I just taught you the neuroencoding technique for the stop technique. And there's a great book here. I think this is backwards, but it's Conquer Your Negative Thoughts by Dr. Daniel Amen. And he's one of our master coaches.
Mhm,
And this is all on the ants, the automatic negative thoughts.
mhm,
And so if those automatic negative thoughts are popping up, I want to ask myself, is that thought true? Meaning is, I hate this. Why do I have to do this? I hate that. Or I'm never going to be able to do that. Or this, I'm always this, or you're always that. Is that really true? Because in there, it explains all the different ants. And I need to have that awareness and understanding. Is it always like that? Or was this an isolated incident?
mhm, mhm,
Right. And so having that understanding of that is really, really critical for the kids in their decision making process, and for us as well. So when I teach people that, or when we teach people this,
mhm,
uh, in these tools and techniques, they're set up in a way of which there's ownership happening
mhm,
in how I'm thinking and I'm feeling. And when I can continually align the head brain and the heart brain on this, then the action that I take is going to be aligned for success,
mhm,
because I've learned how to navigate through those situations of that emotional connection or what I'm thinking,
mhm.
and 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 challenging the validity of those thoughts. And
Oh,
that has really, really served myself and our family well.
mm, mm. Well, thank you for sharing that. And so let's review it one more time. So the S is for,
Saying what the emotion is.
got it. That was the one I didn't write down, but you've taught
And
me this many times. So
yeah, the naming of it.
got it. T is,
I'm mad. I'm
yeah.
so
T,
angry.
yeah, just, yeah, say it. And then T is take a deep breath. O is
Yep.
for outcomes or opportunities, which is what do you
Mhm.
want? And then P is for praise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was awesome. I think that's such a great thing for parents to learn. And
Mhm.
um, the other thing I wanted to bring up is, kind of explain how coaching even works. So, what
Mhm.
coaching is really is a series of questions that you ask whoever you're coaching. And in this case, it's your kids, to help them come up with their own solutions or their own answers to things.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, where I think that could go wrong is the parents are trying to run their own agenda and the teenager has their own agenda. So the parent is trying to ask a question or tell the teenager, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. However, it's not allowing the teenager to come to their own conclusion, their own solution, their own result. And so the thing is that parents have a hard time, I think, respecting what the teenager wants and realizing that we don't really have that much of a say in what our teenager is doing. We can,
Yeah.
like you're saying, guide them, coach them, support them. But at the end of the day, the teenager has to be the one to make the choice. We can't, as we all know, we cannot force our kids to do anything once they're big, right? Like when they're little,
Yeah.
maybe,
100%.
right? But when
100%.
they're bigger, we can't force them unless it's through some type of threat or coercion, which is terrible parenting. So don't do that.
Yeah. 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 So I think it comes down, and I've noticed this over the years with my own kids, is coming from a place of authenticity in the heart. I can ask the questions and lead in the place that I know that they should go,
Right.
but not from a manipulative standpoint.
Exactly. That's the
If
nuance.
it's
Mhm.
yeah, if it's coming from that that place of authenticity, then that really shows when in those conversations with the kids, right? And and so it's if something's going on, well, what would you like to do? How would you like to handle this?
Mhm.
Is what I always ask them. And
Mhm.
I am hoping that they'll come up with an answer. And I'll say, you know what, that's great. You can do this. Um, I have a couple ideas. Are you open to hearing them? Or
Mhm.
is it okay if I share them with you?
Mhm.
There are times of which they will say, yeah, sure, go ahead. And there's times of which they flat out say no.
Right.
That's not easy because I'm looking at my options going, that's the one they need to choose.
Yes. Right.
And so I'm gonna go, okay, great. You wanna try that? Go do that.
Mhm.
And I'll check back with you and see, what the outcome was. Did
Mhm.
you get what you wanted? So
Mhm.
when you're looking at that stop technique, what's the outcome of opportunities? Did you get there?
Mhm.
If it worked, fantastic. That's your way of doing it. That's great. Now I've learned something about you
Right.
as a child. And
Mhm.
so I know how to better serve you from the parent or coach perspective in the future. If it didn't work out, now I'm going to say, okay, well, can I share some ideas with you?
Mhm.
And so when I've shifted from that parent and coach role and it just keeps intertwining in that, that serves really, really well in those situations is to get them to align with the agreement of where their starting point is.
Mhm.
They will be more apt to move forward on this.
Mhm.
Now, listen, from the parent coach perspective, there are times when my kids have made some really ding dong choices, and I'm like, for the love of Pete, I know this isn't going to work. They had to discover that.
Exactly. Well, yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
They had to discover that because if I'm making all the decisions for them,
Mhm.
they're not going to grow. They're not going to understand that self awareness. So in
Mhm.
the next situation, they're going to be scared to make a mistake. Whereas I say, you know what? Don't worry about it. It didn't work out. It's no big deal.
Mhm.
And they're like, well, aren't I going to get in trouble? No. Right. So let me give you a couple of examples. My daughter was in middle school. She didn't get up in time to make her lunch because I'm not making lunch. I'm not going to go to school and eat it with her. So it's your lunch. If you want to take lunch, you make your lunch and go.
Mhm.
Right. And she walked out the door because in middle school she would spend an hour or so with her hair in the morning because it's such a social place of which you have to look absolutely perfect in middle school. High schools, soccer hair don't care, and she can just throw it up in a bun and go.
Mhm.
And she walked out the door, and I said, "Well, there's going to be consequences for you not having a lunch today." She went out the door. She came back in after school. How was school today? Oh, it was so terrible, and she just bust out crying. And I
Mhm.
said, "Well," and she, why? She's like, "I'm so hungry. I couldn't concentrate. I did it. And all because it was all based around not having proper nutrition for herself,
Mhm.
feeding her brain and her body fuel to navigate through her day. And then she said, "What's my consequence?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "You said there was going to be consequences. Am I grounded? Do I have to give you my phone?" And I said, "Oh, you thought you were in trouble for this?" I said, "What were your natural consequences today?"
Right. Mhm.
I fell asleep. I did this. I couldn't concentrate. So, in other words, you just wasted a whole day at school. Now you are going to have to go back and review all of this work. Do you understand the importance of having yourself proper nutrition and hydration for your day?
Mhm.
Then she's got to admit, yeah, Dad, you're right.
Mhm.
Great. Now I'm assuming that you're starving right now. Yes, let's go in the kitchen and make something to eat.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now she learned that lesson, and now I'm going to wrap my arms of love around her, if you will,
Mhm.
give her food to get her through until dinner. And that was a learning experience that she had to go through for herself.
Right.
I could have thrown stuff together, taken it down to the school, left it in the office, texted her your lunch is in the office. But what is she going to learn from that? She's not. So
Mhm.
even though in these situations, parents, it might be tough, and you're like, well, my precious has to eat today. Well, yeah, they do, and they're going to eat eventually. But
Mhm.
what lesson are they going to pick up? A life lesson, not your lesson, a life lesson for them,
Mhm.
which is key on that. You
Right.
know, and I can go back through to when they were younger, as toddlers, life lessons that they learned how to navigate through, because they would end up getting the results that they wanted to get.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it reminds me of the expression, the goal is to work yourself out of a job.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
you're doing your best, you're doing a great job if they, are learning along the way so that when they're ready to be independent, they have all those skills, those life skills. The other thing that I like to kind of share with parents is, that same kind of line of natural consequences, but
Hmm.
it doesn't always work the first time,
Yeah.
right? So what you just
Yeah.
said was your daughter, maybe the very next day, she's like on it, she's making her lunch. But
Hmm.
sometimes it takes a long time. And the key is to kind of like keep some patience going for the situation. So,
100%.
it might be an example of I have a friend whose daughter was a senior last year, and she was staying up so late doing her homework. And my friend would always say, you need to go to bed. Why aren't you going to bed? It's getting so late. You're going to be so tired tomorrow. And it just kept going and going and going. And so I suggested, well, what if you just asked her a question instead? And she's like, okay,
Hmm.
what do I ask her? And I said, you could be a couple things, but you could say, what is your plan for this evening?
Hmm.
What is your plan for finishing your homework? Or what is your idea for when you'd like to get to bed?
Right.
And that forced the daughter to come up with a solution, because it's almost like the daughter was just on autopilot. All the daughter knew was that she had to do her homework. And then she just didn't finish until 2 in the morning, and she was tired the next day. And so
Hmm.
by
Hmm.
asking the question, what is your plan for this evening, getting your homework done, and what is your goal for getting to bed? It
Yeah.
forced the daughter to then think of her own solution and then also verbalize, oh, well, I have this, this, and this. It's going to take a long time, but I think if I do it, I can get to bed by midnight, right? But
Yeah.
it took time, right? Like this wasn't just an overnight, no pun intended, like an overnight solution.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
took a little time, and it took the daughter realizing, wow, I really am tired, but it took time. And so that's
Hmm.
the other kind of part of it, is just to, they'll figure it out. Like when they're falling asleep in class, they think, gosh, what can I do to not feel this way, not feel so exhausted? And then they're like, oh, it's because my mom keeps asking me when I'm going to go to bed. Maybe I need to have a better answer for that, right? And then they figure it out.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, because I mean, really, after what, the 30th time that you say, you're going to be tired tomorrow, you don't do it, they're not hearing it.
Right.
They're not hearing it. It's going right past them because they've heard that.
Hmm.
When you come authentically into that space of support, what is it? What does your night look like? Is there anything I can do for you?
Hmm.
Is there anything that you need? Right? um that's always served well for me, because they're making the call, they're making those choices, they're making those decisions. And if there's adjustments along the way, certainly I will jump in there and say, are you open for a suggestion here?
Hmm. Hmm. Or
Right.
I love the question, how can I support you? How can I
Yeah.
best support you?
Yeah.
My oldest daughter, she will do her homework kind of by herself a lot of the times, but sometimes she's like, Mom, can you just sit by me, or can you just sit with me? Like that's all she wants.
Exactly.
And so I said, well, you come here in the kitchen so I can finish what I'm doing. And then it's kind of a win-win, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
She has that company. She likes to have that just kind of feeling connected,
Of course.
so she
Yeah.
wants to feel close, but she still has to do that. So that kind of works. Okay. So last closing thoughts before we wind down. Okay. Where can people find you going forward?
Oh, sure. I am on social media, of course, Energetic Life Now, and that's on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. My website is energeticlifenow.com. It should be up here in the next week. I'm so excited
Yay.
because this has been a work in progress and we're just about there. So feel free to reach out, connect. Would love to meet you guys, and anything that I could do to support you. Feel free to just reach out with questions or comments. Anything that I can do, here for you.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. And as always, I can be found on the positivelyhealthymom.com or the positivelyhealthycoaching.com. So this show can be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thank you. Bye.